I know you didn't click on this video by accident. Something in that title pulled you in. Maybe it was the word unreliable, or maybe it was that phrase, mentally unstable. But deep down, I think you're here because, like me, you've always been curious about the kind of people who live in the shadows of truth. The ones who speak, but no one listens. I want to tell you a story. No, I need to tell you a story that's haunted me ever since I cracked open a dusty box in a locked storage room of the old courthouse archives. What I found inside didn't just raise questions. It shattered what I thought I knew about the past, about truth, and about how easily a voice can be buried when people stop believing in the person behind it. Listen carefully because everything you're about to hear is real. Names have been changed, details reworked just enough to protect identities, but the core of what I'm sharing, it happened. And at the center of it is a woman. Let's call her Anna. I didn't know her. I wasn't supposed to know her. But her name was scribbled in red ink across a decade-old case file, with only 4 words stamped across the top. Asterisk witness. Unreliable. Mentally unstable. Asterisk no explanation. No follow-up. Just that, like a final verdict, no room for doubt. But here's the thing, I don't believe in coincidences. And I especially don't believe in silencing someone before hearing their side. If you've ever felt like you were dismissed, like no one took you seriously, like your truth didn't matter, then I want you to stick with me. This story isn't just about her. It's about all of us who've ever been misjudged, who've had our words twisted, ignored, or buried. And by the end of this video, you're going to get the answer that made me dig deeper, the same answer that almost got me to walk away from this entirely. Because once I started down this road, there was no turning back. But before we go further, I need to ask you something. Ever felt like someone was trying to hide something from you? Like a person or even a system had locked something away, hoping no one would ever find it? That's exactly what this is. It's a mystery buried under years of dust, behind legal jargon and forgotten evidence. But I didn't come this far to let it stay buried. I'm pulling you in not just as a viewer, but as a witness. You are now a part of this investigation. Your eyes, your mind, I need them. Because the further I went, the clearer it became that Anna wasn't crazy. She wasn't unreliable. She was silenced. And that raises a terrifying question. Why? In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the first layer of this story. It's the layer that most people never look past. But once you see the cracks in the official record, once you hear what she tried to say before she vanished from the narrative, I promise, you won't be able to look away. This video isn't about entertainment. It's about uncovering something that should have never been forgotten. I'll tell you what I know, show you what I found, and take you down the same path that led me to a chilling discovery about a hidden witness, a suppressed testimony, and a past that someone went to great lengths to erase. Let me warn you, this story unfolds slowly at first. Not because it's boring, but because it has to. If we rush through it, we miss the details, the clues, the subtle lies hidden in plain sight. That's what the system wanted when they labeled her. They wanted everyone to ignore the details. But not us. We're here for the truth. We're going to peel it back, one layer at a time. And I'm going to take you with me, frame by frame, step by step. So let me take you back. 10 years ago, a case that never made headlines, a quiet courtroom in a county you've probably never heard of. No media frenzy. No public outrage. Just a file, quietly stamped, quietly forgotten. Until I found it. And now you have found it too. That's no accident. It means you're meant to know what happened. There were inconsistencies in the reports. Witnesses who contradicted each other. A timeline that didn't add up. And then there was Anna's statement, buried at the bottom of the file, barely legible under a coffee stain, and 3 sets of corrections. But I read it. And when I did, I felt a chill. Not from what she said, but from how true it sounded. Raw. Terrified. Desperate. The kind of truth that isn't neat or polished, but real. And that's when I started asking myself, what happens when someone speaks the truth, but no one wants to hear it? That's where it starts. And listen, I know there are a million videos you could be watching right now. True crime, horror, interviews, celebrity drama. But this one, this isn't fiction. This isn't a ghost story. This is a real person's life that got buried. And I need your help to bring it back to light. This is your chance to be part of something rare on YouTube, a mystery that actually unfolds before your eyes, not just told to you. So don't just watch, investigate with me. Her file mentioned something else, a name scratched out, a photo paper clipped and then removed, and a single post-it note stuck on the last page. Asterisk, not credible. Close it. Asterisk, that's not how truth works. You don't get to stamp it and walk away. But someone did. I found a voice that was never meant to be heard. And now you're about to hear it. Her words, her fears, her final warning. They all point to something much bigger than what the case ever admitted. Something that could change the way we look at justice and silence. And if you're still watching right now, I know you're not just curious, you're invested. You feel it. You know there's something here that doesn't sit right. You're wondering the same thing I did. Who is she really and what happened to her? Stay with me. Because what comes next will shake you. We haven't even scratched the surface yet. And the truth? The truth is still hiding, just beneath the dust. When I started digging into Anna's life, I wasn't expecting to find much. People like her, people labeled unstable, usually vanish without a trace. The world forgets them quickly, like shadows erased by morning light. But Anna had left breadcrumbs. Not obvious ones. Nothing that would scream for attention. But subtle, deliberate signs that someone with patience and curiosity could follow. So I did. And what I found didn't make sense at first. Because the woman described in the file, erratic, delusional, unreliable, didn't match the woman whose life I slowly began to reconstruct. What I found was someone incredibly sharp, self-aware, and painfully aware of how easily the truth could be manipulated. I found journal entries, small, handwritten notes crammed into the margins of old books that she donated to a local thrift store. I found voicemail fragments pulled from a number that had been inactive for years. I even tracked down a neighbor who remembered her not as the woman on the record, but as someone who always looked like she knew something she wasn't supposed to. Anna lived alone in a rundown apartment complex on the edge of town, the kind of place where people don't ask questions and nothing ever makes the news. Her neighbors called her quiet, distant, odd. But when I pressed them for details, all they could offer were vague observations. One woman swore she saw Anna burning stacks of papers late one night in the back courtyard, watching the flames like she was sending a message. Another man claimed he once saw her speaking to herself at the mailbox, but when he got closer, she was just silently holding a folded photograph. And when he asked her if she was okay, she smiled. Only her eyes didn't. That was 3 weeks before she vanished. Here's where it gets more twisted. A few months before her disappearance, Anna was reportedly obsessed with a local incident that barely made it into the police logs, an alleged home invasion gone wrong. No arrests, no suspects, no follow-up. On the surface, it was nothing. But Anna had flagged it. She'd written notes about it in the margins of library books, made copies of old news articles, and even attended a court hearing that she had no connection to. She wasn't involved in the case, at least not officially. But something about it had triggered her. Something that made her feel watched, paranoid, and maybe threatened. Her phone records were strange, too. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, she made dozens of calls to the same number at irregular hours. Sometimes just seconds apart. The number belonged to a landline in a government office that no longer exists. I confirmed that. But back then, it was tied to an investigator who suddenly retired under vague health reasons. I've tried contacting him. No response. His home went up for sale 2 weeks after Anna's last call. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe not. But here's what I can't shake. Why would a woman labeled unstable be so methodical in tracking a case that no one else cared about? Why was she trying so hard to connect dots that were officially ruled unrelated? And who was feeding her information? She wasn't acting alone. That much became clear when I found an encrypted USB hidden inside the spine of a hollowed-out psychology textbook at the used bookstore she frequented. I almost missed it. If the pages hadn't been unusually stiff, I never would have noticed. The contents were partially corrupted, but what remained painted a disturbing picture. scanned images of evidence logs, handwritten annotations that questioned witness statements, and a single, chilling sentence repeated in different fonts across multiple files. Asterisk, it wasn't a break-in. It was a message. Asterisk, that line keeps me up at night. Because if it wasn't random, if someone staged the scene deliberately, then who was the message for? Anna? Or someone she knew? This is where the story starts to unravel, but not in a clean, obvious way. There are people who knew Anna, friends, maybe even lovers, who won't return my messages. One man, who worked in the same building as her for a brief period, pretended not to remember her name until I showed him her photo. Then his entire demeanor changed. He got defensive, started asking me how I found him, and then hung up. I haven't been able to reach him since. That's not normal. People don't react that way unless they've got something to lose. Another name kept coming up in her notes. E. No last name. Just the initial. Always circled, always followed by cryptic comments like, ask too many questions or trust broken, but still a thread. I don't know who he is. Not yet. But someone with access to police reports, or maybe someone in a position to misfile evidence, would have the reach to bury a voice like Anna's. Someone who knew how to make her look crazy, unreliable, disposable. And yet, she kept pushing. That's what gets to me. She wasn't afraid. Or maybe she was, but she pushed anyway. Which begs the question, what kind of truth is worth risking everything for? There's another layer to this, though. A neighbor told me that in the last week before she disappeared, Anna received 2 visitors. Both men. One tall, sharply dressed. The other more casual, but tense, constantly glancing around like he didn't want to be seen. Neither man spoke to anyone else in the building. They arrived separately, but on back-to-back days. And both left after less than 10 minutes. No police records mention any of this. No surveillance footage exists, at least not anymore. But someone else was interested in Anna. Someone with urgency. And now we're left with more questions than answers. Why was she watching a case that wasn't hers? Why did she hide files and encrypt her data? Why did she burn papers? And why did someone go to great lengths to ensure her story stayed buried? You're probably asking the same thing I am. Was she really unstable? Or was that just a label placed on her to make sure no one believed what she knew? To make sure no one would listen when she tried to warn us? The deeper I go, the less I trust what I'm seeing. There are patterns here, overlapping timelines, suspicious retirements, retracted testimonies. But nothing you can tie down. Nothing that screams guilty, yet. That's the mark of a smart cover-up. They don't silence you all at once. They discredit you. They isolate you. And then, when no one's watching, they erase you. Anna might have seen it coming. Maybe she even planned for it. But she left a trail, and now, you're following it too. We still don't know who he is. We don't know what the corrupted audio clip on the USB once contained. We don't know why the only surviving piece of Anna's original testimony was edited by hand, with certain lines blacked out by permanent marker. And we don't know who left the key to her storage unit in a public locker that hadn't been opened in years, until I found it taped behind a false wall panel. But we're getting closer. And that's when things started to get dangerous, for me. Because when you start asking questions that weren't meant to be asked, someone always notices. And that's when I received a message I can't explain. A message that changes everything. But we'll get to that. I thought I was prepared for whatever came next. I'd dealt with dead ends before. Broken links, locked records, people who vanished from public directories like they never existed. But what happened after I found the key to Anna's storage unit shifted the story into a much darker place. It was supposed to be the breakthrough I needed. I went in expecting boxes, papers, maybe old journals or personal items, anything that might explain why she was so fixated on that forgotten case. Instead, what I found was emptiness. The unit had been cleared out, swept clean. Not a scrap of paper, not a single photo, not even dust. Like someone had been there just moments before me. But the lock, still intact. The key I had still worked. That should have meant no one had accessed it in years. Yet somehow I was too late. Someone got there first. It didn't make sense, not at first. I kept thinking maybe I got the wrong unit. Maybe I'd misunderstood the note behind the panel.
But no.
The number matched. The key matched. What didn't match was the timing. I contacted the facility manager and asked to check access logs. He looked confused at first, then told me something that made my stomach twist. This unit was scheduled for demolition months ago. It shouldn't even be in our system. He pulled up the record, or tried to, but the page wouldn't load. Then the power flickered, just briefly, but long enough for both of us to feel that something was off. When the screen came back, the unit's history was gone.
Wiped.
The manager leaned in closer and whispered, "You should be careful. Sometimes people disappear chasing things they don't understand." I tried to laugh it off. I asked if he was joking. He didn't blink. I left with nothing. But someone knew I was coming. Later that night, I received a private message on an old Reddit account I hadn't used in years, one I never connected to this investigation. The message was brief, anonymous, no profile picture. Just one line. Asterisk, she trusted the wrong person. Don't repeat her mistake. Asterisk, it was followed by a link to a YouTube video. I didn't click it right away. Something about it felt wrong, like a trap.
But curiosity got the better of me.
The video was grainy, silent, shot from what looked like a hallway security camera. It showed Anna. She was pacing back and forth in what looked like a dimly lit waiting room. Then a man entered, tall, clean-shaven, wearing a suit. His face was blurred, but there was something familiar about the way he moved. They spoke for several minutes, but no audio played. At the end, she handed him a file folder. He tucked it under his coat and walked away. That was the last frame. There was no description, no upload date, no account history. Just the footage. And then, within 20 minutes of me watching it, the video disappeared. Account deleted. Every attempt I made to retrieve or download it failed. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just watching Anna's story anymore. I was living inside it. I tried reaching out to the old coworker again, the one who had gotten defensive when I asked about her. This time, I used a different number. He picked up. I didn't mention Anna right away. I asked about the building they worked in, how things were back then. At first, he was polite, a little distant. But then I mentioned the case, the one Anna had been obsessed with. There was a pause, like dead air. Then, with a tight, tired voice, he said, "We weren't supposed to know. They told us. She made it all up." But she didn't. Before I could say another word, the call dropped. I called back. Number disconnected. That line had worked moments before. Now here's where things spiral. As I kept piecing things together, something strange started happening to my devices. Files were vanishing. Not just Anna's stuff, my own work, my backups, even personal photos. At first, I thought it was a technical glitch, but the deletions were too targeted. Entire folders related to the investigation were simply gone. One night, my computer crashed and restarted on its own. The wallpaper had changed to a black screen with just 3 words typed in white. Asterisk, let her go. Asterisk, I don't know who did it. I didn't give anyone access. But someone was watching. In the middle of this chaos, I was contacted by a woman who claimed to have known Anna through a mental health support group. She said her name was Claire, and she sounded sincere, shaken, even. She told me Anna had once confided in her that she wasn't mentally unstable, but rather that she was made to look that way. They drugged her, she whispered, not in the hospitals but outside. In her food. In her drinks. She knew what was happening. She even saved the pills they gave her. But no one would believe her. When I asked Claire to meet in person, she agreed, but with a warning. If you see the man in the blue coat, she said, leave. Don't wait. Don't ask questions. I arrived at the diner where we were supposed to meet. She wasn't there. I waited over an hour. Then I saw a man in a blue coat standing across the street. Not moving. Just watching. I left immediately. That's when I found the letter. It wasn't mailed. It was slipped under my apartment door. No return address. No envelope. Just a folded sheet with handwriting that wasn't mine. It was Anna's. Dated 3 days before she disappeared. The ink was faded, smudged in places, but the message was clear enough to read, and it shattered everything I thought I understood about her story. She wrote, Asterisk, I was wrong about who to trust. It was never the case. It was who was behind it. If you're reading this, then I failed. But someone else will find the truth. Don't believe the one who helps you. They're not who they claim to be. Asterisk. Someone I thought was an ally is lying to me. And I think I know who. I couldn't sleep after reading that letter. Anna's words stayed with me, echoing in my head long after the ink had faded from view. Someone close to her, someone she trusted, wasn't who they claimed to be. And now someone close to me might be playing the same game. But here's where the story starts folding in on itself. The deeper I got, the more reality began to blur, like someone had painted layers over the truth and left me peeling back scraps in the dark. Just when I thought I had a grasp on who Anna really was and what she had been trying to warn the world about, another twist surfaced, one that made everything even harder to understand. And it started with someone I hadn't expected to hear from again, a friend of mine named Nate, someone I hadn't spoken to in months, not since I began this investigation. I never involved him for his own safety. But now, somehow, he was already involved. Nate called me late at night, clearly rattled. I could hear the static in his voice, the edge of fear behind his words. He said someone had broken into his car, but nothing was stolen, except one thing: a flash drive. The only reason that even mattered was because that drive had nothing on it but old personal photos and one folder I'd given him as a backup months ago when I thought I might need to offload files from my own system. That folder contained parts of Anna's file, some notes, and the photo I'd taken of the USB contents I found inside that hollowed-out book. He was never supposed to open it. I told him not to. But curiosity got the better of him, too. He saw the name E written in the margins. He remembered the headline about the case Anna was watching. And just like that, he was pulled in. Only this time, the threat came faster. That same night, someone left a message carved into his apartment door. Asterisk, 2 is too many. Asterisk, Nate packed a bag and left the city the next day. I couldn't help but wonder, was this meant for him, or a message for me through him? Because now we weren't just dealing with surveillance or erased files. This was a warning carved in wood, sharp and deliberate. But it was Nate who dropped the next breadcrumb, the one that spiraled the story into a whole new direction. Before leaving, he forwarded me a voicemail he received hours before his call to me. It was garbled, barely audible, but one word came through clearly. Asterisk, Claire. Asterisk, the same Claire who was supposed to meet me at the diner. The same woman who warned me about the man in the blue coat. But here's the part that really got me. Claire had never been on the record. There was no proof she even existed. I checked public records, old support group rosters, even searched through Anna's archived emails. Nothing. It was like she'd been invented for the purpose of reaching me or misleading me. But there was one thing Anna wrote in that final letter I couldn't let go of. Asterisk, it was never the case. It was who was behind it. Asterisk, I kept going back to that line, thinking about how the entire story started with that dusty file, the old evidence, the forgotten testimony. What if the case Anna followed, the home invasion that went cold, was just a cover for something else? What if the incident itself was never the point, but rather the people involved? The names buried inside the paperwork, the ones scrubbed from public view. That led me to cross-reference every name in the file, witnesses, officers, even courtroom staff, against anything I could find online. And that's when I found it. A name I'd seen once before, hidden in a scanned email Anna had annotated, but I'd overlooked. A name connected to a privately contracted forensics lab, one that had gone dark years ago after multiple employees were tied to evidence tampering in closed cases. The company had a nickname among local law enforcement circles: the Disposables. It was known for quietly cleaning up messes no one wanted to talk about. They didn't just erase data. They erased people. The deeper I looked into that name, the more doors started closing. Websites disappeared. Email servers stopped responding. My VPN was blocked at random intervals. But there was one more thing, something Anna had written in the margin of that same email. 3 words, underlined twice. Asterisk, follow the signature. Asterisk, I didn't understand it until I checked the digital metadata of the email. Buried deep in the code, barely visible, was a cryptographic tag linked to a secure communication network used by law enforcement and military contractors. This wasn't some rogue agent or local corruption. This was systemic,
Structured.
controlled. Anna had stumbled into a world she was never supposed to see, and now so had I. Then, out of nowhere, Nate's number pinged me with a location. No message, just a dropped pin. It was a rural area, about 2 hours outside the city, not near anything. But what shook me most was where it led, to an abandoned facility once used for behavioral health trials, now shuttered and boarded up. I checked old inspection records. The facility had been cited for dozens of violations, mostly having to do with off-the-books testing and missing patient documentation. One of those missing patients? A woman listed only by her initials, Anna's initials. The timeline matched. The age matched. But according to the file, that patient was released into private care and never seen again. If Anna was once part of this facility, then the label mentally unstable wasn't just convenient, it was manufactured, crafted. And now the puzzle grows more tangled. Was Anna a whistleblower from inside the system? Or a survivor of something darker, something they tried to silence by discrediting her mind? If that's true, then the case file I found wasn't the beginning. It was the middle. And everything since has been carefully controlled to push me toward a version of the truth someone wants me to believe. That theory gained weight when I received an envelope in my mailbox. No return address again, just a black seal. Inside was a single photo. It showed me, sitting at the diner, waiting for Claire. Across the street, the man in the blue coat. But here's what I hadn't seen before. There was someone else in the frame, watching from inside the diner. A man sitting in the back, face turned just slightly toward the camera. And the worst part? I recognized him. He was the courthouse archivist. The one who gave me access to Anna's file in the first place. And he told me he didn't remember anything about her. So why was he watching me? And more importantly, who was he really working for? The morning after I received that photograph, something inside me shifted. It was like a switch had flipped. Up until that moment, I had convinced myself I was still the one in control, that if I moved carefully, asked the right questions, stayed smart about who I trusted, I could stay ahead of whoever was trying to bury the truth. But seeing that man in the diner, the one person I believed had no stake in this, the one who opened the door to the case file in the first place, watching me from the shadows, it stripped that illusion away. I wasn't in control. I was being played. And worse, I didn't even know how long it had been happening. The moment you realize the person handing you the map might have drawn it to lead you off a cliff, that's when fear really starts to dig into your bones. That same night, my apartment door was unlocked when I got home. I know I locked it. I checked it twice before I left. But now it hung open slightly, not kicked in or forced, just ajar, as if inviting me to pretend it was nothing. Inside, everything looked untouched. No signs of struggle, no drawers yanked open, no chaos. But something was off in the air. The silence was heavier. The lights flickered just once as I stepped inside. And then I noticed it, the framed photo on my shelf, the one of me and Nate from a hiking trip 2 summers ago, was turned backward. Just that. Nothing else moved. No message left. No fingerprint. Just that quiet, subtle move. Someone had been inside. Not to steal.
Not to destroy.
Just to remind me that they could come and go as they pleased. That I was never really alone.
I didn't sleep that night.
I kept the lights on, sat with my back to the wall, laptop open, watching footage from a security cam I'd hidden in the hallway outside my door a few weeks ago. Paranoia had already started to creep in before the break-in. What I saw confirmed everything. At 2:41 a.m., a figure stood outside my door for nearly a full minute. No mask, but the camera's resolution was too poor to get a clear image.
Tall. Male.
Wearing a blue coat. That same coat. The same posture. But this time, he looked directly into the camera. No attempt to hide. Like he wanted me to know he was there. Like he was trying to tell me something without speaking. That's the part that haunted me most. It wasn't just intimidation. It felt like a message. And I had no idea what it meant. I called Nate immediately. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. I left a dozen messages, sent texts, even pinged his backup email. All silence. He'd gone dark, and the last thing he'd done was send me that dropped pin. I considered driving out there again, but something stopped me. A gut feeling that if I went alone, I wouldn't come back. Instead, I started looking into the courthouse archivist. The man I thought was just a quiet employee, helpful, harmless. But the deeper I searched, the stranger it got. His name, when cross-checked with employment records, didn't show up anywhere before 2017. No credit history. No background. And then I found a forum thread buried in the archive of a now-defunct conspiracy subreddit where someone had posted about a man with the exact same face. Only in that story, he worked at a federal facility in New Mexico under a different name. Same glasses. Same build. Same lazy left eye. Just a different title. And the thread ended abruptly, closed by moderators due to national security concerns. Everything was unraveling.
Fast.
I began to notice more signs. Cars I didn't recognize parked outside my building for hours, always empty, but never ticketed. A man I'd never seen before pretending to read a newspaper outside the coffee shop I visit every morning, the same man on 3 different days, always wearing sunglasses even before sunrise. And then came the call. It rang once. No caller ID. When I picked up, there was no voice, just breathing, steady, intentional. I waited.
Didn't speak.
After 30 seconds, a mechanical voice finally came through. It wasn't synthetic. It was distorted, masked, and it said, "Asterisk, you're looking in the wrong direction. Keep digging, and someone else disappears." Asterisk click. The words weren't empty, because the next morning, I got a call from Nate's sister. She hadn't heard from him in over a week. His phone was off, his apartment locked. She said she found a slip of paper taped to his fridge, just a number written in black ink. It was my number. No explanation. No note. Just that, as if I was his only contact. I asked her if she'd called the police. She had. They brushed it off as an adult choosing to disappear. No signs of foul play, no forced entry, no digital trail to follow. And once again, a man labeled unreliable. Just like Anna. Just like me soon if I wasn't careful. I was being pulled into something I didn't fully understand. A network of silence, of selective erasure, of people who once tried to speak and were branded as unstable, difficult, dangerous. The system didn't just bury truths. It branded the people who carried them. And the more I learned, the more isolated I became. Friends stopped responding. My phone started overheating randomly. Bank alerts popped up showing login attempts from devices I didn't recognize. The walls were closing in, and I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. But the final blow came when I went back to the courthouse, just one last time. I needed to see the physical file again. Maybe I missed something. Maybe Anna left something I hadn't noticed before. But when I arrived, the archive office was gone. Sealed shut. A paper sign on the door read, "Asterisk, Records Department closed for renovation. Reopens in 2026. Asterisk, no explanation. No warning. Ask the front desk clerk what happened. She said she didn't know what department I was talking about. I turned to leave, and that's when I saw him again. Across the lobby. Not in the blue coat this time, but the same man. The one from the photo. The one from the hallway footage. He was watching me. Only this time he smiled. And then he turned and walked through a door labeled Staff Only. And just like that, he was gone. I stood frozen in the courthouse lobby, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The man with the smile had disappeared behind that staff-only door, like he belonged there, like everything I'd uncovered, every secret, every threat, was part of a system that never stopped watching. I almost followed him. My hand even reached for the handle. But something pulled me back, not fear exactly, but a sense that I was standing right at the edge of something much bigger than I ever imagined. I left without speaking to anyone. I needed time to think. I needed answers. And for the first time, I realized I might already have one buried in something I had overlooked from the very beginning. Back at home, I tore through my files, flipping through Anna's notes, cross-checking every timestamp, scribble, and redacted line. There was one phrase she'd written over and over again. Asterisk the wrong witness. Asterisk at first, I thought it was self-referential, her way of acknowledging how the system had dismissed her. But now, something about it felt different. It wasn't a statement. It was a warning. What if Anna wasn't talking about herself at all? What if the case she followed, the one she obsessed over, had a second witness? One the files barely mentioned. One hidden behind redactions, marked as irrelevant, a non-critical observer who didn't testify and was never interviewed again. I found the name, buried at the bottom of a police incident report. Handwritten, barely legible. Asterisk E. Caldwell. Asterisk, that was the E from her notes. Not a code name. A person. But when I searched for any record of E. Caldwell, driver's license, employment, social media, nothing came up. Not blank, but scrubbed. Like they'd been erased long before I ever started digging. I might have hit another dead end if it weren't for a twist I never saw coming. That night, I got a knock at my door. No text, no call, just a knock. I looked through the peephole and froze. It was the archivist. The same man from the photo.
From the hallway.
From the courthouse. Only now he looked different. He wasn't hiding. No glasses. No disguise. Just standing there, waiting. Against all logic, I opened the door. Before I could speak, he handed me a single envelope. "You've gone too far," he said quietly, his voice calm, even gentle. "But you also deserve to know." Then he turned and walked away. Inside the envelope was a photograph, not of Anna, not of a crime scene, but of me, sitting in the courthouse records room 6 weeks ago, the day I found her file. Only in this photo, I wasn't alone. Standing behind me, slightly out of frame, was Nate. I stared at it for nearly an hour before it clicked. Nate had never told me he'd been in that building. He claimed he knew nothing about the case until I brought it to him. But this photo, dated and time-stamped, proved he'd been there. Not just in the courthouse, but with me. Which meant everything he told me after. The flash drive, the break-in, the voicemail from Claire. It could have all been scripted. Fed to me. Planted. And the more I thought about it, the more the pieces began to move, like a jigsaw puzzle snapping into place after weeks of looking at it wrong. Nate hadn't disappeared. He'd gone dark. On purpose. And maybe the voicemail from his sister wasn't a concerned call for help, it was bait. A push to make me chase the wrong threat while the real one stood right beside me from the start. I didn't want to believe it. He was my closest friend. Someone I trusted. But the signs had always been there, the way he panicked after the stolen flash drive, the way he pushed me toward certain theories but pulled back when I got too close to others. He never challenged the narrative I built around Anna. He just let me follow it deeper. What if the real reason he went silent was because I was getting too close to Caldwell? What if he was never on the outside of this? What if he was in it, deep, and I had been the one manipulated from the start? Still, I needed confirmation. I dug through every email, text, timestamp, every interaction I had with Nate during the early weeks of my research. And there it was, plain as day. He was the one who first suggested I back up Anna's files on his drive. He was the one who told me about the thrift store where I found the hollowed-out book. He was the one who sent me the pin to that abandoned facility. Every clue I followed came from him. Not coincidence. Guidance. He had been leading me all along. And if that wasn't enough, what I found next shattered everything. In one of Anna's earliest journal entries, dated almost a year before she vanished, she wrote about meeting someone online who claimed to believe her story. Someone who offered to help her gather evidence. She only ever mentioned him once, but she called him N. There it was. He was involved with her before she disappeared. And now he was involved with me. Which means this wasn't about uncovering the truth. It was about managing it, controlling it, feeding just enough to keep me chasing shadows while they erased what really mattered. And now I have to ask the question I've been avoiding from the start. What if Anna never vanished? What if she was taken? Or worse, what if she never existed at all? I drove through the night, following a set of coordinates I didn't trust but couldn't ignore. They came in a final, Anonymous message sent to the encrypted account I'd been using since everything started spiraling. No words, no threats this time, just a set of GPS coordinates and a single file attached. The file was a short video. Grainy, poorly lit, but unmistakable.
Anna.
Or someone who looked like her. Sitting in a small, windowless room. Her hair longer than in any of the photos, her face thinner, eyes hollow but alert. She wasn't crying or panicking. She wasn't pleading for help. She was staring directly into the camera, and when she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Asterisk, it was never about me.
It was about you.
You're the final witness. Asterisk. The drive led me far outside the city, through winding back roads and patches of forest that hadn't seen headlights in years. The kind of place where no one would hear you scream if things went wrong. I reached an old radio transmission building, rusted towers, peeling paint, locked gates swinging in the wind. It looked abandoned, but the front door was cracked open, just enough to feel like a trap. I entered slowly, flashlight in one hand, recording everything on a body cam I'd been wearing since the break-in. The air inside smelled like damp concrete and burnt wires. Every step echoed too loud. The hallways were lined with gutted tech, monitors smashed, wires coiled like veins, the hum of long-dead machines filling the silence like ghosts. Then I heard the door slam behind me, and a voice I hadn't heard in weeks. Nate. He stepped from the shadows slowly, his hands up like this was all some kind of misunderstanding, like we were still friends, like the last few weeks hadn't revealed him to be the single thread connecting every twist and lie in this unraveling nightmare. He didn't look afraid. He looked calm, resigned, and that terrified me more than anything else. I asked him who he really was. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he motioned to the room behind him, the control center once used for broadcasts, now stripped bare except for a table at the center, where a laptop sat open, a video looping over and over. Anna's face. The same message. He looked me in the eye and said, "You were never supposed to see the file. You were supposed to walk away." His voice cracked, not with emotion, but exhaustion. He told me the truth, or his version of it, in pieces. That Anna wasn't a victim. Not exactly. She was part of an experimental surveillance program, one meant to root out corruption from inside by fabricating chaos outside. They used her as a vessel, a ghost in the system. They discredited her to protect her. Or so they claimed. But something changed. She started going off script. She found out the program wasn't just watching criminals. It was manipulating public perception, engineering narratives, deciding who would be remembered and who would vanish. Nate said he was recruited after she disappeared. His job wasn't to cover up the truth, it was to control who found it. He followed me not to stop me, but to redirect me, to keep me from seeing the part of the story that would ruin everything. There are no reliable narrators, he said. That's the point. Truth doesn't matter. Asterisk believability asterisk does. He stepped closer. But you wouldn't stop. So now you have to make a choice. He showed me two files. One was a folder that contained every piece of raw evidence. Unredacted testimonies, internal memos, digital signatures proving law enforcement collusion with a private forensics lab. Proof that the surveillance program didn't just bury Anna's identity. They created dozens of false stories to keep anyone from chasing the real one. The second file? It was mine. Every message I'd sent, every video I recorded, even this one, the final act. The script of my own destruction, prepared and time-stamped as if this moment had already happened. It detailed how I suffered a breakdown while chasing a conspiracy that didn't exist. How I fabricated Anna. How I broke into federal property. It ended with a death certificate, mine, dated for tomorrow. Then he handed me a choice. Upload one of the files. Only one would make it out. My hands shook as I reached for the keyboard. Do I release the truth and destroy every shred of credibility I have? Or do I save myself and let the lie continue, protected and polished, replayed until the world forgets the real story? Nate said nothing as I hovered over the touchpad, watching Anna's face loop again on the second screen. That whisper still repeating in my ears. Asterisk, You're the final witness. Asterisk. I closed my eyes and clicked. The screen went black. And then a glitch. For a moment, both files uploaded. And that's when everything went wrong. The screens in the room lit up all at once. Every wall pulsed with data, names, locations, photos, confessions. And in that flood of light, Nate lunged, not for me, but for the power source. I tackled him before he could rip it out, and we fought. Not like enemies, like two people caught in the middle of something neither one of us truly understood. I saw the fear in his face, real fear, not of me, but of what we'd unleashed. Sirens outside, footsteps pounding. Then, just before the doors burst open, he whispered something I'll never forget.
She's not dead.
She never was. They pulled me out in cuffs,
Took my camera.
confiscated everything. But they were too late, because someone had already downloaded the files. Someone who had been watching the stream. Someone anonymous. Or maybe not. The next morning, a new video hit the trending page on YouTube. It was Anna, speaking clearly,
Calm.
focused. And she said one thing before the video cut to black. Asterisk. Now that you've seen the truth, what will you do with it? Asterisk. It's been 6 months since Anna's video went live, and nothing in my world has been the same since. The video was up for less than 3 hours before it was flagged, pulled, and buried beneath an avalanche of independent fact-checking, disinformation campaigns, and digital static. But that window was enough. It went viral before it vanished. People recorded it, shared it, broke it into 1,000 pieces across the internet. Reddit threads exploded, podcasts dissected it, and TikTok creators flooded the algorithm with stitch theories and reaction clips. Everyone saw it. Everyone had questions. And yet somehow, within days, the narrative was scrubbed, twisted, reframed. Mentally ill former employee resurfaces with deep fake conspiracy. Hoax victim manipulates YouTube for clout. AI-generated political disinformation campaign traced to defunct government program. Just like that, the truth was once again placed in quotation marks. And I became the punchline. The unreliable narrator. They never filed official charges against me. I wasn't imprisoned. But I was erased in a different way. I lost my job. My name was quietly added to federal watch lists. My online accounts were shadow banned, content flagged as misleading or dangerous. Nate disappeared again. This time for good. I don't know if he was extracted, eliminated, or simply moved to the next target. The building where we fought.
Gone.
Demolished in a controlled burn 2 weeks later, labeled as a fire hazard. Not a trace of evidence left. Not even the rusted towers. The story unraveled, not because it was false, but because that's how systems like these work. They don't destroy information. They dilute it, smother it in noise until no one knows what to believe anymore. And yet something strange has happened. In the silence that followed, people began reaching out. Not publicly, not loudly, but privately. Quiet messages from whistleblowers, from others who saw things they weren't supposed to. Former employees, ex-contractors, even one retired judge who told me, in code, that the case Anna was following was just a surface scratch in something deeper, an architecture of control embedded in everything from local elections to online search results. A few of them sent documents, real ones, internal memos, surveillance logs, audio files of meetings that never officially happened. I started collecting them, organizing them. And this time I didn't post them online. I sent them to people who could protect them. Journalists with encrypted inboxes. Civil rights organizations with real legal muscle. Hackers who don't care about headlines, only impact. I don't know if it will change anything. Maybe the system is too big, too smart, too deeply rooted. Maybe Anna was right from the beginning. We were never meant to expose it, only to witness it. To remember that behind every case file labeled unreliable or unstable, there might be someone screaming the truth with no one listening. That's what stays with me. Not the footage, not the threats, but the look in her eyes, that clarity, that strength after all they did to bury her. She wasn't trying to be believed. She was trying to be seen. And now she finally was. People still ask me if she's alive, if she was ever real. I don't answer anymore. Not because I don't know, but because that's not the question that matters. What matters is what you believe now after everything. What you do with what you've heard. Whether you choose to close the tab, forget it, move on with your day, or whether, deep down, some part of you can't shake the feeling that there's more. That something's wrong. That maybe the truth isn't just hidden, but manufactured. Sometimes, late at night, I still get messages. No name. No sender. Just 3 words. Final witness active. And every time I wonder, am I the last one? Or just the next?